and welcome to another episode of Video Synthesis Tarot, a show in which I discuss the concepts of abstract visual information in the tarot and how we can use that information when we are working with real-time video synthesis. So to start off with, I have a spread right here. This is from the Thoth Tarot, which I'll be continuing to use for a while until, I don't know, maybe we cover all the cards or something. But let's just take a look at this spread. So we have adjustment, death, and two of discs. So just to talk about this spread together a little bit, there's an interesting sort of set of congruences here. Adjustment is the card which has replaced Justice in the Thoth Tarot, for the reason that adjustment is supposed to represent natural forces that sort of bring things into a kind of, not necessarily equilibrium, but perhaps balance, a balanced system as opposed to a steady state. Because according to Crowley, nature does not have any concept of justice. Nature is anarchic, is an anarchy, or a state of grace, or state of nature was sort of the old-fashioned way of saying that, which was another word for anarchy, and anarchy would not mean like punk rock, like Smash the System anarchy, but anarchy in that there is no there's no top-down sort of authority presence that enforces things. Nature is a system of many hegemonic forces which interact with one another, and any sort of structure or balance comes as an interplay of these forces. So that's sort of what adjustment is. Death is a bit of the idea of sort of organic material decomposing and becoming more life as it decomposes. It can also be thought of as sort of a chemical metaphor for chemical processes. Death, you can see, is a skeleton with a scythe, a sigh, which also seems to be sort of a harp which spirals up, and as it sort of sweeps the sky around the sigh, it's creating these spiral bubbles. We could see some more of that really interesting mathematical patterning happening in here. And then we have change, which is two of discs, and change we can see is an Ouroboros, which is surrounding two complementary yin-yangs, and in this concept, in this context, change seems to be about sort of cyclical motion. So we have natural adjustment, the state of nature, which is sort of in some ways self-regulating, but in some ways still constantly adjusting for processes. We have death, which is representing organic material cycles or inorganic material cycles, mineral cycles, and the way our atmosphere works, the way solar systems form out of supernova, the way that galaxies form. These could all be considered aspects of death. And change, which is these sort of cyclical patterns, change in which you come back to a similar spot where you're from, or change as sort of complementary aspects of yin and yang. So we can see that here we have a lot of concepts which work quite well in terms of working with video feedback, because we have a lot of ideas which have similar corollaries with sort of the underlying nonlinear dynamic chaos theory aspect of video feedback, where things kind of change, but they change, they can often change in very cyclical ways, where things will repeat, things will loop over and over again. We're not really doing much other than adding some delay into things, but if I start to mess around with stuff, we can get some cyclical change happening. Just to sort of illustrate everything that's going on here. Let me get some very simple cycles happening. So if I bring this back up, and then we can... So simplest kind of cycles that you can get in video feedback would just be these sort of oscillating bands of color. And as I attenuate and affect the color space, we can get some oscillating patterns. So there's a threshold point. So we can see that there's sort of thresholds for everything. Like in a natural system, say you have like the standard scientific model of predator and prey, where you look at like how does the population of a predator, like a species like a wolf, affect the population of a prey species like a rabbit. So the more prey you have, the more rabbits you have, the more food there is for the predators. But the more predators you have, the less prey you have. So these two populations are locked in sort of a feedback loop. So say, of course, nothing is sort of like empty or it's on its own. Like obviously the rabbits need to eat plant material in order to survive. So we can think of these as being the food for the rabbits, and then the pattern in here is representing the cyclical changes. So we just have a lot of food and not a lot of cyclical change happening here, but as I increase the hue attenuation, we can see we've got some cycles happening here. It goes from the like a full hue cycle once over here. See if I can add some more saturation to everything so we can see what's going on. And then as I bring up the hue, we attenuate things until there's multiple cycles happening, but then if I turn it up enough, it sort of disintegrates and we get like we get a phase shift and it dissipates into a new pattern, because you can see there's hue cycling happening, but it's too fast for this system. The cycling is so fast that it doesn't register as bands anymore. We see it instead as these kind of like, it feels like noise to us. This is just because we can't zoom in hard enough. We would still see pattern if we could zoom in hard enough, but we've jumped past the resolution of our system and we're sort of aliasing. So that's one way I would think about this whole system itself, is trying to go back and forth and finding the sweet spots within the chaotic systems where you have sort of cyclical movement as opposed to just sort of the what we had earlier, which was just really like a standard delay. We can also think about, let's look at one card at a time now, and let's just look at some of the more geometrical properties of it. So we have adjustment here. Adjustment is very much, we can see that the dominant sort of shapes in here would be this figure in the middle with the scales, Aleph and Omega. Scales and a sword. They are hooded, so they can't see anything, and they are enclosed in a diamond shape, which is sort of dominating the primary geometrical aspect of this is this diamond shape figure, and then surrounding at the top and the bottom we have all of these pyramids and spheres. So just thinking about the interaction between dominant and foreground and background shapes, let's try to play around with this a little bit. So let me try to key everything else out, and let's just get some of these things going on. The symmetry is quite strong here, so I'm going to add symmetry into the feedback. Let's see if I can hide these for the moment. There we go. So we have symmetry happening in the symmetry happening in the card and in the feedback, and let me see if I can get this right in the middle here. Actually, we can do something else. We can use the symmetry to try to have a create a diamond shape in our feedback. So not perfect, but we've got something going on there for the moment. So I want to have things kind of busting out at us too. So we're going to radiate outwards. There we go. created something more of a diamond shape happening in here. And we have these sort of circular patterns, and you can see up at the top here we have these little grids happening. We've got some sort of other perspectives, some curved perspective lines happening back here. And overall, the color scheme is aquatic blue with a tiny bit of greenish yellow tinges to everything. Let's try to pull everything together. Let's see if I can get my pants out of the shot, because they are the wrong color for this shot. Forgot to synchronize my outfit for this program. Let's see if we can get some blue happening. So, I'm going to add some more saturation, and I'm going to tweak around with things until I can see if I can get some blue. There we go. We've got some blue happening. I don't really want this red so much, but I would like to see if I can get some yellow. That might be a little tricky. But these are some pretty interesting... There we go. We've got some blue and yellow happening. Let me see if I can add some more... Smooth everything up. Slow it. Maybe if I slow this down a bit. There we go. I slowed down the feedback to get everything more shape to flow. And let me see if I can do some more geometrical stuff that will accentuate the geometrical feelings of everything. And I'm going to turn up the brightness so we can see more of what's going on. And yeah, this is pretty interesting. We've gone a little bit far into purple. See if I can tweak things just right here, and we can get, yeah, blue and yellow happening. And we've lost a little bit of what I was hoping would be the, what do you call it? Ooh, interesting. The sort of diamond. We still have a diamond shape sort of in the middle, a little bit. If I just, yeah, cover this up. There we go. And we have these symmetric patterns going around the outside of everything, and a mixture of straight lines and curved lines. I wonder if I can slow this down even farther. Pull this out. There we go. So that's pretty, that's sort of one way I would think about adjustment here. So we have cycles happening, we have a sort of system of correction and a sort of cybernetic system where something is starting, we've got a seed, and then it's trying to go somewhere, and as it moves it sort of keeps getting corrected around. So not just the video feedback itself, but also the process of working with live video synthesis and the card of adjustment have a lot of corollaries. So that's adjustment. Sorry, just getting distracted with some things here. So, let's hop on over. Let's reset everything. And let's talk about death. So what we've got going on with death here... Excuse me. So the movement in death, death is not a symmetrical card. It's got a very sort of pulsing, sort of a pulsing, throbbing, swirling move up here. So I'm going to try some rotations, try curling around some things. Our color scheme is also sort of a mixture of various earth tones and then sort of a bit of an undersea theme as well. So I'm going to see what I can do with these ideas. Let's pull these cards out of the frame. Let's do each card on their own. So we've got death happening here. And let me think about how I can work with these. We've got a couple of concepts. We've got the curling sort of spirals that go up off into the distance. The ways I can think about working with that would be, the simplest way is to start working with rotations. We've got this rotation. It doesn't really feel like a spiral, but maybe if I move the spiral more, and then we can get some spirals going up and off into the corner of the frame. And So now we have this sort of, well, actually, let me move it over to the other side. Yeah, so then it's not, so my framing isn't so awkward with my head bobbing over off in the distance here. So what I want to do is bring this frame off to the, bring this spiral off to the side, so we have sort of a spiraling movement going up here. I want to add some more perspective to this, so I'm going to use this like Z displacing thing, so we get kind of this image of a sort of an infinite process. And I think this is sort of an interesting way to think about death and rebirth, is this sort of like cyclical process where you can think about all of the sort of ancient death. What do we got over here, right at the tip here? When you think about things like in the past, sort of starting from here, and everything is kind of feeding into like where we're at right now. So here's some death and death and life here in a sort of infinite spiral. And feedback in general, especially working with feedback where you have sort of control over your this world, the spatial factor, allows you to kind of illustrate infinite concepts which wouldn't really work in a lot of other contexts. So we're able to kind of like visualize both. We could think of it, if we had it sort of coming up this way versus this way, we can think of things being farther away as being in the past. And we think of things being closer as being sort of more prevalent to us, more relevant. Fun game to play when you're listening to videos I make is sort of guess how many words I've just completely accidentally made up while talking, or how many words are just completely the wrong word, and then I never really edit myself out. But yeah. The depth, I'm not going to play around with too much of the color space here because I like how this shape is working really well, and I feel like messing around with the color too much. We're already getting the color from the from the card, so I'm cheating a little bit, but I just like how the shape works out. And just to show you a fun trick, if I add in some of this rotational, we can get some other kind of nifty patterns here. If I just add this tiny little, if I just hit the switch and then allow for symmetry happening down the middle here, then we've got this going on. We've got sort of multiple frames of multiple time frames all affecting the present here. And I can even increase the rotation even stronger. But that's just going to kind of, we lose the spiral at a certain point. The spiral, I think, is quite important. So yeah, there's some death. And then our final card here, this was change. Change I'm going to move around and think about in this kind of a composition. So this actually kind of works pretty well with where we started from here, because all of these things we're working with are cyclical and patterned. I really, I'm gonna be corny as heck and keep working with this kind of rotational, both the rotation and with the symmetry. But what I'd like to do is to kind of try to create a new palette out of this. So change. You can see that the Ouroboros and the yin and yang are both sort of these like they both sort of represent like, not like you can see in this card we have what's happening right now, and then we've got sort of the past and the future. So we have this sort of like linear sort of there's a little bit of a linear progression in time. We talk about death rotting and life bubbling up out of death. Whereas this one has a more sort of like stasis kind of mentality. We have the Ouroboros, which swallows itself, and we also have the, what do you call it? The yin and the yang, which comes from the Taoist philosophy, and Tao is sort of about, it's about more of like a stable state kind of situation. It's about more equilibrium. When you think about adjustment being about the state of nature, where nature is sort of like an anarchic process, change in the Taoist tradition, in the Taoist concept, is about sort of how change sort of always comes back to where you were at the beginning. Cyclical change. Wow, this went on way longer than I thought. Also, I like the little crown on the snake. So let's try to frame this in our feedback. Let's move some things around so we kind of get everything in the same. Ooh, get something here. Just a little bit farther up. Maybe we need to move this sort of in here more. But I want to get kind of a feeling of yin-yang, and I'm going to invert the color scheme as well, because I think that might make a difference in our composition as well. Let's bring our sort of Z scale back in a little bit. Amplify. Actually, no, I don't want to amplify that. Currently, just want to amplify these things. And try not to make it too unpleasantly strobing. And I feel like, here we go, we've got something pretty legit in terms of the spatial composition of this card and this concept of sort of things moving. We've got a regular system of movement happening here. So if I was to add a little LFO oscillator on this, what do you call it? The old rotational, my rotational knob here, that would sort of, I think, feel like a nice illustration of this world. Ah, yes, perfect. I can try to like trap this in here. And I'm going to keep doing that thing where I move my hands in the frame because it's fun and it looks cool. But yeah, so that's it for another episode of Video Synthesis Tarot. Let me know in the comments if you have anything that any questions on these subjects. Also, let me know if you're interested in working together on one of these projects, because I think it would be fun to work with someone else who is more familiar with different decks than I am. And then we could try to team up, and I could do video synth stuff off of the sort of like an improvised art and tarot reading session. So yeah, let me know if you're interested in that as well. Alright, and I hope this was educational, illustrative, and as always, have fun. Oh, I'm holding on this because we've got some oscillation happening. We've got some perfect oscillation happening for the concept of change, because it's oscillation, it's this cyclical oscillation, and it just sort of sums up what this spread was about and sort of what our whole talk was about. Ha ha ha. Serendipity.